This podcast is part of the Red5 Network. For more Red5 Network podcasts, visit red5network.com.
So what I told you was true, from a certain point of view.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 46 of the From a Certain Point of View podcast. And Adam, it is good to be back.
Yeah.
After being gone for a couple weeks there, I'm glad to be back here with you doing the news segment and doing everything here together.
Yeah, back. I was going to sing something, but I'm not. Forget that.
What were you going to sing?
I don't know. I'm tired. I don't even.
Back to life, back to reality, something like that.
No, it sparked something, but then I couldn't like really place the song, so I just had to step away from that joke.
Maybe next week.
Yeah. All right. Sure.
We'll feature Adam singing on the next show. I promise.
That's not not my promise. That's Josh's promise.
Yeah, it might be a false promise. But so what have you been up to?
Oh man, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. We didn't have any show last week. It's the first time in a year that we have not had a show on a Sunday. So,
yeah, sometimes you got to take a little break.
Yeah, we took a little step back. Things got a little crazy around the interwebs, so we took a step back. But we're back. Things are good, and as far as what I've been up to, I've been reading some more of Thrawn, the new Thrawn book, Chaos Rising, which I'm really enjoying. And this week on Disney Plus, I started watching Prop Culture. Have you heard of that? Watched it?
I've heard of it, but I haven't watched it.
It's super cool, and I think you would really enjoy it. It's
sure I would.
It's about basically a movie prop collector that goes around, and I guess Disney brought him on to mainly talk about some Disney movies and props and stuff like that. So I watched the first 3 or 4 episodes of that. I think there's only like 8 episodes. But it's really cool. It's really good. And I think
it's on my watch list.
Yeah, there's some really good feel-good moments in there. Some good, get chills, get moved emotionally type things. So it's pretty cool stuff. Reconnecting actors and actresses with some of their props, even from all the way back to Mary Poppins. And it's pretty cool.
Nice. I will definitely have to check that out.
Yeah. So you've had you haven't done much the last 2 weeks, right?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I just took a little trip to Batu.
Oh, okay.
Visited Black Spire Outpost.
Yeah.
It was kind of cool, a little underwhelming. No, I'm just joking.
Okay. It didn't look like much.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. I actually put out a little teaser trailer for the full video I'm going to be working on of my experience there. So if you go to our YouTube page, you can check that out. And yeah, so I have a few new friends behind me. If you over my left shoulder here, I have BB-8, which Sydney and I built together in the droid building.
Oh, cool.
Mm-hmm. And a new child figure back there. He's
Nice.
not the animatronic one.
It still looks pretty cool though.
But yeah, and for like $25, it was a steal, I thought. I mean, I didn't think that was bad at all.
No, not at all.
And then over my right shoulder, I have the...
It looks better than my little plush.
Yeah, he's still cool. But I ended up, I was thinking about getting the green Luke lightsaber.
Yeah.
But I ended up going with the reforged Rey / Skywalker lightsaber.
Can't go wrong
and
with that.
I'll probably put a little video out on that too at some point. Just taking a closer look at it. But I just love, like, when I was in there in Savi's workshop and they just had it open normally you can build your own lightsaber in there, but for the time being they just have the legacy lightsabers in there and you can look at those and everything. And when I felt the green lightsaber, Luke's green one from Return of the Jedi, like, it didn't feel as good as this one did in my hand. Like, this one had a little more weight to it. It felt a little more real, a little more authentic. more durable. I ended up going, and I think the saber is pretty unique and is pretty powerful to the sequel trilogy story and even the original trilogy and everything. So.
Did you get the blade also? I see the hilt, but did you get the blade too? Okay.
I did get the blade, yeah. So I'll have to construct it sometime when you come over here. And
now you said that's the reforged one, so from
it is
Rise of Skywalker. Okay, nice. Yeah, okay, yeah. I can kind of see the band around the middle of it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty neat. So
okay.
Yep.
Let's go.
And I watched The Last Jedi while I was on vacation, and then last night I just watched Rise of Skywalker again. And so that I've been up to a lot of Star Wars stuff lately. Yeah.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Always good to have Star Wars stuff on hand.
Absolutely. So what's coming up on today's show, sir?
We got an exciting show today. We got some news. We're going to catch up on just a little bit of news from last week that we missed that we didn't get a chance to talk about. So we're going to catch up on some of that. And we got some other news stories that we're going to touch on this week as well. Some brand new news. And following that, one of the biggest things that happened in Star Wars this week by far was the first trailer for the second season of The Mandalorian. So we're going to kind of dive into that. Josh put out a reaction video on YouTube. If you haven't seen that, be sure to check out Josh's reaction to the trailer. But we're going to kind of, dive into it a little bit and see what we can pick out. So that's going to be a second segment. And then the third segment, we're really super excited to welcome on Pat and Charles from ConverSWations. They've got a great show over there, and we are really happy to talk with them. We're going to be breaking down some pivotal moments in Star Wars and taking a really deep look at those moments and how they affected the story as a whole.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to talking about this trailer, getting your reaction to it. I really haven't talked to you about it yet. And also very excited about our conversation with ConverSWations coming up and these pivotal moments and maybe some moments that seem a little smaller, but actually
I tried to go with smaller moments on my list. Yeah. I tried to pick out a lot of smaller moments. So it's going to be interesting to see how all of these fit together and what we all picked.
Yeah, so we should have a great show here for you today, and let's dive into the news segment.
Well, you want the bad news or the really bad news?
So like I said, we're going to catch up on a little bit of news from last week. And the main thing that we wanted to talk about from last week that we didn't get a chance to talk about is Daisy Ridley showed up on Jimmy Kimmel Live, which was actually hosted by Josh Gad, as Jimmy Kimmel has taken a little step back from his show for a bit. But we know... I mean, you and I know, and probably most people listening out there that know that Daisy and Josh have had a fun little back and forth through this whole, last 6 or 7 years.
They have a very fun relationship, and Josh is always trying to squeeze information out of Daisy about Star Wars. So. Yeah,
and he did that again, and he got some interesting information out of her. So, it mainly... the main thing that came out of this interview that everyone's talking about is Josh asked her about her family history, the origins of her character through the sequel trilogy. And she said, so here's the quote, "At the beginning there was toying with an Obi-Wan connection. There were different versions, and then it really went to she was no one. Then it came to episode 9, and JJ pitched me the film and was like, oh yeah, Palpatine's granddaddy. And I was like, awesome. And then 2 weeks later, he was like, oh, we're not sure. So it kept changing. So then I was filming, and I wasn't sure what the answer was going to be. Mm-hmm. So I really wanted to talk about this and get both of our takes on this because,
Absolutely.
The narrative that came out on Twitter around even on social media as a whole was that this was, the trilogy was a mess because no one knew where it was heading. Paraphrasing, of course, but that was the main idea. I didn't quite get that feeling out of it, but Josh, what did you get?
Not at all. I mean, it was a possibility, you know. There's going to be tons of possibilities that go through filmmakers' heads, and
Right.
about what to do with certain characters and everything. So, and I really wasn't surprised about this at all. I actually I thought
either.
that I thought this is what was going to happen, to be honest, and it was kind of what I was rooting for. You know, because Rey had kind of the Kenobi accent
for the Kenobi,
her being a Kenobi. You know, Kenobi says these are your first steps and everything, in that kind of Force vision. And, you know, I thought it would have been really cool for her to be a Kenobi, and then maybe in the Kenobi series we would have explored like how that happened, you know. I thought that, you know, I kind of had this theory that it was all going to connect to that, and that's why they were waiting to release the Kenobi series till later. But it didn't turn out that way, and that's fine. I mean, you know, the more I watch The Rise of Skywalker, the more the Palpatine thing grows on me and everything.
Yeah.
But I didn't, you know, I don't know what exactly the Twitter reaction was, but I knew for me that I was just like, okay, it was a possibility, so not a big deal, you know.
Yeah, I mean, Twitter reaction doesn't really matter to me. That's always going to be 10 steps farther than it has to be.
Right.
I mean, for me, it's definitely just confirmation that, you know, this was there wasn't as much of a roadmap to begin with, and maybe not. Maybe not. That's not fair. I mean, maybe it's just that plans evolved, which plans evolve. You know,
and that happened with the original trilogy.
Yeah,
and I think people forget
movie,
that,
and not even just Star Wars. Any movie, especially any trilogy,
right.
You can look back at things and see how, you know, maybe things were supposed to be and how they evolved and how they changed to where, you know, they ended up when an audience saw it. Like you said, the original trilogy did the same thing. You could talk about Vader,
Luke and Leia being
siblings. I mean, yeah, they're making out through
right
parts of the other movies, and you can obviously tell that wasn't the plan until the last movie came about. And you know, Vader being Luke's father, that wasn't planned. You know, that was very different when George started writing this stuff. This happens, and not just Star Wars. It just happens, and that's kind of the way it goes. So it doesn't really. I knew there wasn't, you know, that outline at the beginning. Now, had JJ done this whole thing start to finish, then he had an outline, because you know, and I said this on the show before. I think that Episode 9 was really what JJ envisioned.
Yeah, what he would have done.
7. Yeah. So I think it was kind of his episodes 8 and 9 crammed into one movie. But you know, it doesn't bother me. Now, the one thing I wanted to say, I don't think I would have liked Rey Kenobi as much, even as much as Rey Palpatine. And I know that there's negative reaction to Rey Palpatine. I understand that. Like, I can see where it does feel a little weird. But the thing for me with Rey Kenobi is it doesn't feel like it gives her much to figure out, you know, and it doesn't feel like, and I know that Ben or Obi-Wan speaks to her in those visions, but I just don't feel a connection between her and Kenobi that serves that purpose, I guess. It serves any type of purpose to the story, other than it just being a cool connection for us, you know. The Palpatine thing, as much as anyone might not like it, and again, I understand that, it adds to the story for me. You know, it gives her something to confront, to overcome, you know, to figure out. So for me, that adds a little more to the story that makes a little more sense for me.
I agree. Because of the fact that she has to fight that darkness within her, and she's afraid of her own powers and her own lineage once she discovers it. And she has to choose to be something different.
Right.
You know,
right.
So
definitely. So yeah, that's you know, the main Rey Kenobi stuff that I wanted to touch on. Anything else for you on that?
No, I just think it's kind of cool hearing that it was a possibility, because it's something that was in my mind, you know, and I was like, okay, so they did consider this. I wasn't like crazy for thinking that this could be a possibility.
So, right.
But yeah. And moving on to our next piece of news, we have a little news about the Mandalorian and the Emmys. Already taking home some awards, before the main show, which is happening tomorrow night, which would be tonight for our listeners, Sunday evening.
Right.
And it already took home some awards beforehand: outstanding cinematography, outstanding production design for a narrative program, outstanding sound editing for a comedy or drama series, outstanding sound mixing, and special visual effects. And I think it absolutely deserves all of these. And I love the fact that The Mandalorian is being recognized for its not only its innovations in technology, but also for the sound mixing and the sound editing as well. So I just think it's great that it's already being recognized, and Star Wars is being recognized in this way.
Yeah, that's awesome. The steps that, like you said, the steps that it took, the technology, as far, technologically speaking, we're just, you have to recognize that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good. Good stuff.
Up next, we're talking about Tales from the Galaxy's Edge, and we are going to get Anthony Daniels returning to voice C-3PO, and we're also going to meet Master Yoda, according to StarWars.com. And
that's interesting. I don't know how that one works.
Yeah. When in the timeline is this?
Yeah, that's a good question. This
has to be like, I'm sure we're gonna see some kind of,
unless it's like a holo of Yoda. I don't know, but that's kind of weird.
Force Ghost or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's gonna be released this holiday season, and we got a little teaser about the Tales from Galaxy's Edge. Did you get to check out that teaser trailer?
No, I didn't. No.
Okay. I mean, it looks pretty neat. Again, it's one of those things where you're going to have like an Oculus or whatever, which I don't have yet, but it's starting to get more tempting.
Yeah, right.
As they keep releasing these games. So, and of course, after being, in Galaxy's Edge, I'm definitely interested in this, but maybe I'll just have to watch a YouTube video of somebody else playing it, because that's what I did with Vader Immortal.
So I haven't even watched a YouTube video. I kind of want to experience that on my own, but I don't know. I decided to cancel my PS5 pre-order, so maybe the money that I didn't have to spend on that, maybe I'll use that money that I don't have to spend on an Oculus.
There you go.
So
there you go. Yeah. I mean, PS5. We talked a little bit about that this week because I was very excited about PS5. I love PlayStation. I've always gone with PlayStation, other than like Nintendo. But I was very disappointed that they're not supporting the Dolby Vision technology, like with a 4K Blu-ray. And that's the issue I have with my current 4K player, is that it doesn't do Dolby Vision. So I was really hoping for that, but anyway, we have some more news in gaming as well, about Star Wars Squadrons, because Star Wars released a CG short called Hunted, and I know you watched this.
100% watched this.
So what did you think of the short that they released?
What I thought of this is that I don't know why that wasn't a full length animation project or something. That was incredible. I'd almost be happy to just let EA Motive kind of work on a Star Wars movie or something.
Yeah, some kind of animated movie or
awesome.
something like that.
It looked beautiful. I love, I love how they told that from the TIE fighter's perspective, and
the Empire, Empire's point of view type of thing. Yeah.
It's something they've been toying with ever since new canon stuff. Even back to Lost Stars,
like
that. Both sides are fighting for something they believe in, and that animation again was just gorgeous. I thought it was wonderful.
Yeah, agreed. So definitely looking forward to Squadrons, and I would love to see an animated series or movie out of EA Motive. So very, very well done. So check it out if you haven't. It's on the Star Wars YouTube channel and everything. Definitely worth a watch.
All right, wrapping up the news for this week, we're going actually back to Galaxy's Edge, and yesterday, Friday, the 18th, when we're recording this, the Disney Parks blog put out a brand new poll where you can vote for the next Legacy lightsaber that will show up in Galaxy's Edge at Savi's
workshop.
Yeah, geez, total blank there. But they put out a choice of 6 lightsabers, and you could choose Anakin Skywalker, Qui-Gon Jinn, Ezra Bridger, Kanan Jarrus, Cal Kestis, and Lord Corvax from Vader Immortal. I voted for Qui-Gon Jinn because that all black lightsaber is just A-okay for me.
It's pretty cool.
Did you get a chance to look at these or vote even?
I'm gonna vote, and I'm gonna vote for Cal Kestis. That is just so unique, so different.
Yeah. Well, at the time of recording, you are in the vast majority there. Over 40% are voting for Cal Kestis, and Qui-Gon is coming in second at 18%. So it looks like
at least you're in second. I mean,
yeah. But it looks like Cal Kestis might be getting a lightsaber at Savage Workshop.
I'm voting right now as we record here for Cal Kestis.
live voting.
My vote is in.
So yeah, make sure y'all. I'll include this link in the show notes. Make sure y'all hop on and vote for your favorite lightsaber there, and you might get a chance to buy that later at Galaxy's Edge.
All right, awesome. Well, that wraps up the news for this week, and we are ready to dive into the Mandalorian Season 2 trailer.
My disappointment in your performance cannot be overstated.
Okay, so we had the release, finally, of the Mandalorian Season 2 trailer. I wasn't sure when this was coming. I knew it would be coming soon.
I didn't think I honestly didn't think we were going to get one at all.
I knew we were going to get one.
I thought it was I really thought that it was just going to drop. I thought we would get the date, and I thought they would just let it ride. But hey, it was really cool.
That would be very bold of them to do that. But I think people want to get a little glimpse of what's going on.
But I mean, people are just going to watch this anyway.
Right.
This is one of those shows that people are just going to watch. So
I mean, yeah.
Overall, I wanted to say that I'm very happy with this trailer because it didn't show much, and that's mainly why I was okay with not getting a trailer at all, period.
Yeah.
And, this didn't show very, very much. It's a bunch of cool action shots, some introductory shots and some other things. And that was mainly it. Dialogue was mainly from season 1. So, yeah, I was happy with that aspect of it for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you. And, I think the mistake I really made with The Rise of Skywalker that I wish I didn't was I kind of looked too much into it and read the leaks that I didn't think were
the good thing
true.
About this is that no one is diving into this at all.
Right. Right.
So it's very, no one's doing frame by frame. No one's doing, there's no theories out there whatsoever.
None. Zero.
Yeah.
No, I mean, but with Rise of Skywalker, I felt like I ruined it for myself a little bit.
Okay.
And now that I'm removed from that time period, watching it like last night, for example, I really enjoyed it a lot more. Just because my expectations were no longer there. I was just kind of taking it in for what it is. So I've decided from now on, I'm not going to try to read leaks or, anything like that anymore with Star Wars, especially, just because I don't want that to happen again. But
yeah, fair enough. And that's also why I don't have any, in all seriousness, I really don't have any theories to, on this. I'm trying to stay away from it. Don't want to do it. So, I know there's some juicy stuff in there that you can theorize away on, and but I'm not going to do it.
I'm going to force you to talk about it today.
Okay.
But seriously, this trailer was pretty cool. Like you said, it didn't reveal too much. We didn't see Ahsoka pop up or anything like that, which is smart. And I think this show does a good job of showing us a little bit, but then the big reveals and secrets are still a surprise, like the whole Baby Yoda child thing. They kept that a secret. We're not seeing any. We are seeing what looks to be. What I got out of this was it looks like we're going to go to some new places.
Or maybe possibly some more places.
Maybe a familiar place or two.
Mm-hmm.
I loved the look of some of these locations. One that comes to mind is the snow / ice planet. People are saying maybe it's Hoth, maybe it's Ilum, maybe it's neither. Maybe it's a new planet. I mean, I would lean a little more towards Ilum.
I would too. Hoth doesn't make any sense to go back to Hoth. There's really not. There's really not. I mean, what else happens on Hoth?
Yeah,
we're gonna go back and find a Wampa. I don't. I mean, like
right.
Why?
Or the blown up rebel base, or there's no point. But if he's looking for the Jedi and he's looking to get the child to the Jedi, then it would make sense that he would find his way to Ilum.
Right.
And we've seen Ilum show up in the Clone Wars and in Jedi Fallen Order. It has a lot of ties to canon. So I think that's where I would lean if it is a familiar planet.
That said. There was a planet that looked very much like that Tatooine that ended up being Orvala 7, a brand new place last season. So,
I think that's actually what I said in the trailer reaction / breakdown that I did. I kind of made that mistake before with thinking that it was, even though we got to see Tatooine. I mean, there were
Tusken Raiders and everything, but it wasn't Tatooine. It's like. We won't know until that episode hits. So, and that's one thing that season 1 taught me is that characters might look familiar. You might think that you know what's going on, and there's that one character that I'm sure we're going to talk about here pretty soon in this trailer.
Yeah,
but they've been wanting to do some brand new things. I mean, there was a time where they did go to Tatooine. So it shows that they can go to familiar places, but it's also very clear that they're interested in doing brand new things.
For sure, which is great.
I agree. Yeah.
And the other, then we also had what looks like kind of a water area. I don't know if it's a whole water planet or anything like that, but we see a ship on the water, and some familiar looking species. I can't think of. Do you remember what that species is called? Is it
the octopus guys?
They're
Corn.
Is it Corn?
Yeah,
Corn. So that could be Mon Cala.
Mon Cala. Yeah.
That's one of the
theory out there. I would love to see. I would love to see Mon Cala in live action. We've seen it in Clone Wars. I'd love to see it in live action.
Certainly. So that's a possibility. We don't know, of course.
Sure.
But a lot of what this trailer showed, I thought, was just the connection. The ongoing connection between Mando and the child, and them being together, where I go, he goes. Basically, I think was a line from the trailer or something like that. I love that about it as well.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned a character that might be somebody. Who were you thinking?
The hooded female character that shows up.
Which is like Sasha Banks, by the way.
Sasha Banks. If you're familiar with WWE, she's a wrestler for the WWE. But it looks like that's Sasha Banks. It's almost, and I think it was confirmed by a wrestling site or something like that. So that's her. There, and like you said, with the planets, there's theories out there about who she is. The most common I think that I've seen is Sabine Wren, and back when there were rumors of her being cast, it was for that role. I don't know if it's Sabine or not. I mean, I could,
for some reason I don't.
That. Yeah,
I don't think it is.
I could see it being Sabine. I honestly, in my heart, I think it's a brand new character. I don't think I don't think it's a character we know yet.
I think you're right.
I could be wrong, but I think that's where I'm leaning.
That's where I'm leaning as well with that. So I agree. I think the main thing that gets me really excited, and I don't want to get overly excited about it because they could be 2 new planets, but if you're talking about these planets like Ilum and like Mon Cala, and these are planets that Dave Filoni has utilized in the Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm.
These planets have shown up. I really what I want is I want this second season to expand upon the characters and the worlds and be connected, and kind of like I want to see a Dave Filoni basically connected universe type of thing, you know. And then like different characters that maybe Ahsoka gets her own show and Dave Filoni oversees that. And I would just like to see this kind of connected universe on Disney Plus with Star Wars. I think it'd be really neat.
For sure.
That's kind of what I'm hoping for. But of course, I will, I'm sure, love the show just because of the relationship between Mando and the child and everything that's going to happen in it. But I would love to see kind of a connected universe type of thing.
Yeah. So overall thoughts on
the trailer?
Other thoughts? I mean, I love the trailer. I thought it was a wonderful trailer. Perfect, just enough, not too much. I thought it was perfect. I want to sneak this in here. Do you think that we'll get a second trailer?
I don't.
Okay.
No. I mean, we might get like maybe a TV spot or something.
Yeah, there'll be TV spots. I've heard TV rumblings that I don't know if you're familiar with Jim Hill at all. He has a podcast network, and he's actually pretty well connected with sources at Disney and Disney Plus. And he said he's hearing some things about a second trailer, so we'll see.
Okay.
Which he said would be the first part of October is what he's hearing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, I'd be perfectly fine with just.
Yeah, I mean, I was
fine with just this one, but
I was fine with 0. So, but yeah, so we'll see.
Yep. All right. Well, that wraps up our trailer talk for The Mandalorian Season 2. October 30th can't come soon enough.
Agreed. It felt like it wasn't that long when we got the date, like October 30th. That's not that far. And then the trailer comes and it's like, oh my God.
Now it feels longer.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are getting ready to welcome Pat and Charles from ConverSWations. So I'm very excited for this segment. Let's just jump right in.
Ahsoka, surely you understand. This is a pivotal moment in the Clone Wars. The heart of the Republic is under attack.
That is a brand new bumper just for our segment today. I'm so happy for this segment. I'm super excited for this. We are welcoming on two very good friends of the show, Charles and Pat from ConverSWations. They have an amazing podcast, so much fun to listen to. This past week, they had the Andrea and Lauren from the Galactic podcast on. They talked about middle chapters of the last three, all three trilogies, and great episode there. So welcome, Pat and Charles. Thanks for joining us. Tell everyone hi.
Hi. Hello there.
Good job.
That was pretty good.
I have been practicing. I've braved COVID with this beard for nothing.
I love the beard. It's very Kenobi.
Yes, it is.
So Charles came to us with this great idea for a show, and we jumped all over it.
He has all the great ideas.
He does. He does.
You know, it's not surprising.
Yeah. Every show needs one of those, and I'm not sure where ours is yet. But yeah, he came to us with this idea for a show about pivotal moments in Star Wars. And so we all four of us kind of took some time and came up with what we thought were pivotal moments. Could be these major moments that we're all kind of aware of. Could be some smaller things that maybe influence the story in some way. But we all kind of pulled these together, pulled them together, put them in categories, and we're going to kind of go over these, and we're just going to talk about pivotal moments in Star Wars. So very excited to jump into this.
See, Adam keeps mentioning we all, and this is the first I'm hearing of this.
Okay.
So thank you.
Okay.
Charles,
So Pat, what we're going to be doing today
I appreciate your honesty.
I didn't do any research.
Let's also use this as a teaching moment. Yeah, I can have a great idea, but I rely on everybody else to put the spackle in the middle of all the ideas because I got nothing.
Nice.
Are you calling me spackle?
Yes, calling you spackle.
Like a weird Canadian insult. I'm not sure how to take that.
Oh, you just called me spackly.
Oh, jeez.
We'll avoid the Canadian.
They immediately regret having us here.
No. It's just, I think everyone's listening to the moment when ConverSWations fell apart.
This is a pivotal
My
moment.
question
This is a pivotal
who's
moment,
the Yoko Ono? Who's the Yoko?
I'll let you guys figure that one out. I'm not going to jump into that one.
Will you be my Yoko Ono? Oh. Bare Naked Ladies had a song called Yoko Ono, by the way. Just saying.
Okay. I haven't listened to a whole lot of the most Bare Naked Ladies that I've ever listened to is the theme song for Big Bang Theory.
There you go. Yeah, they're well known. That's a good one too, of course. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of there's probably like a list of top 20 Canadian bands that you have.
Oh yeah, they're super huge up in Canada.
They are. Not anymore, actually. They've
gotten a little big for their toques, if you ask me.
Not so bare naked anymore.
Oh man, I love it.
And here we go.
So Star Wars.
Where did this all go wrong?
When we hit record.
Right out the gate. Right out the gate.
Hit record and it all went downhill from there. So where do we want to start, Charles? I know you kind of compiled some of the list here. So where do you want to begin this?
Well, I think that when you guys shared the list with us, I was writing mine out, so I actively avoided looking at your list just to sort of.
I actually did the same. I saw Josh's was in there, and I avoided even glancing at his.
Perfect.
Well, that's good to know, Adam, because I read all of yours.
Well, mine wasn't there after, so I mean that. Did you copy all my answers?
I had to know.
He's covering up his paper, like.
Get your own. But so and Pat was working on his in isolation, of course. So I think that even if there's overlap, I think it'd be really cool. But I would suggest maybe we just start in chronological order. Just start at the beginning, right at the
episode 4.
No, but I was thinking the Phantom Menace, and we just sort of work our way through there.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and do this round table. Let's let the guests go first. So starting with Phantom Menace, what pivotal moments do we have?
Go for it, Pat.
Oh man, I think it's unavoidable to pick anything but the Duel of the Fates.
Okay.
Ooh.
Very good.
I mean, it's very it's a conventional pivotal moment, but it's arguably the most pivotal moment in the franchise. So, Duel of the Fates is my submission for a pivotal moment there, just because of not only the impact that it has on Qui-Gon, womp womp, but on Obi-Wan, and of course the Chosen One, and him being brought up by Obi-Wan instead of Qui-Gon, which, if anyone's familiar with Dave Filoni's explanation of that scene.
Oh, yeah.
I was just going to say that, actually, yeah.
Oh, man. Quit looking at my answer.
Apparently I have a habit.
So, I mean, just all of those things put together, and the fact that it's really the first Jedi we see killed. Because, you see Obi-Wan, be defeated,
right?
In A New Hope, but he's not really killed. He kind
of chooses it.
Did that himself. Yeah, he did that to himself.
Right. So it's very shocking for one, because as a viewer, it's the first time you see that, and you hear little baby Anakin say, "Nobody can kill a Jedi," and then somebody kills a Jedi.
Yeah. It's almost like that's foreshadowing.
Yeah, weird, right?
Yeah.
So and that's us as an audience, kind of like, well, nobody kills Jedi. They're great and wonderful, and you hear about them dying when Obi-Wan talks to Luke on Tatooine, but it's a completely different thing to see it so intimately and so raw.
Well, that's a fabulous submission. I reject it because it's cool, so I'm going to take it. No.
You reject it.
That's why I wanted you to go first. So for my Phantom Menace pivotal moment, and the way I was looking at it was, for me, that's what's so great about Star Wars. Of course, you watch it and you always see these little things happen or pop up in a different view, and you catch things differently. Or when you're watching something completely unrelated or what you think is unrelated, it'll make a callback to something else. And that was sort of my thought process. And so the first one I came up with was R2 fixing the shields on the Nubian, coming off of Naboo. It's obviously, if that doesn't happen, things go really badly. And although it's a small piece of the moment, that was a major impact on the story, because they probably would have made it off Naboo and end of story. So somewhat pivotal in that sense, but also an introduction to R2, and a pivotal character, really.
Yeah.
That he's set up then as one of the sort of most important cogs in the entire Skywalker saga, and right out from the gate, he's already in there saving everybody.
That's what he does.
Mm-hmm.
I like that one.
Yeah.
Josh, why don't you go next?
Mine was, maybe not as obvious either. Maybe it seems seemingly smaller moment, but actually pretty pivotal, is when the Gungans join forces with the Naboo. And I just think there's this whole sort of a race issue almost going on in episode 1, where the Naboo and the Gungans don't like each other because they're different from each other. And I think it's pivotal.
So smart.
Yeah. I think it's pivotal in the movie because, they have to join forces to have any chance of winning this battle. But also in our world today, just the idea of, being able to join forces with somebody that's different from you and work together and find common ground and put your differences aside, I think is just a huge life lesson as well. So that's why I went with that one.
Very cool.
I went with a very small moment too, and I went with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan running into Jar Jar, because you kind of almost a precursor to what Josh said. I don't know how they would meet and come to each other's aid if that connection hadn't been made right there at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Furthermore, Jar Jar, for as ridiculed as he is, becomes a major player in the political arena in the next 12 years, leading up to the destruction of a republic. And, he's kind of the one that sets that in motion. There's always going to be someone else for Palpatine to, kind of persuade in that way. But Jar Jar just kind of, I think it made it a little bit easier for him. So things would, I think things would have kind of had to shake out a good bit different had that not been Jar Jar, or had that not happened. And I mean, you can almost say that Naboo wouldn't look the same if they hadn't met either, because like Josh said, the one way that Naboo was kind of saved is those two groups banding together. So
yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like the innocence of Jar Jar allowed him to kind of bring the two Jedi down to Gunga City.
Yes.
Whereas if any other Gungan had run into them, they may not have had any sort of conflict, but I don't think anyone with, any sort of strategic thinking would have thought that was a good idea to bring these surface dwellers down to
That's a good point.
To where the Gungans live, because they were very mistrusting of the surface dwellers.
Right. And that's really how Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon kind of get off planet, so who knows what happens to them if that doesn't take place.
Yep.
Oof.
Very cool.
Cool. So we're moving on to Attack of the Clones, and what do we have there? Charles, how about you kick us off this time?
Sure. Mine was Padme's apparent understanding of Anakin's slaughter of the Tusken Raiders. So we know when he comes back from what he did after Shmi died, and he says what he did, of course, in the classic lines of I killed them all. And she, she's not dissuaded from, her path with him at that point. And in fact, in a few minutes later, they're off in a ship going to assist Kenobi. But what's interesting about that is, of course, on the surface level, you could look at it as like, wow, she either just is, in love and and just doesn't really matter, or I can change whatever those sort of subtexts are. But one of the books that I've read recently was The Two, Queen's Peril and the Queen's Shadow. And it gives you a really good backstory to first of all, what a fantastic character Padme is, but also her
handmaidens.
Yeah, and the handmaidens, correct. And she, in the book, in one of the, I think it's Queen Shadow, she says that she has a visceral hate for the Neimoidians because of what they did, of course, not only to her, but to one of her handmaidens. And in the book, she actually said, to herself or whatever, I can't believe I actually just used the word hate, but it's my honest feeling. So she has, and that connection, I think, is that she has the ability to empathize with Anakin on that level, and therefore see where that comes from, and is able to get over it. And of course, and then everything else ensues after. But that for me was a pretty big moment, because that could have been like a huge warning sign at that point that, like, oh boy, he just killed everything. Uh-oh, ding ding.
Yeah.
I think I might actually have to follow up next here, because I think there's some overlap with yours and mine here.
Ooh, cool.
Because I actually went with the Anakin slaughtering the Sand People, and maybe and not necessarily Padme's reaction to it, but the fact that he did it, because I think that took Anakin's character to the next level of potential for turning to the dark side. When that happened and I saw that as a kid, I was just like, oh wow, that this is him starting to turn to the dark side. And so for me, that was the pivotal moment.
Cool. Oh, that's great.
It's kind of what you were talking about earlier, Charles. How Charles, you have two very similar moments, or almost the same moment, and two different perspectives of how that becomes pivotal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
ahead,
in
Pat.
typical Star Wars style, I'm going to jump back in time from both of them, and really kick off both of those dominoes with the death of Shmi.
Mm-hmm.
Ah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So we're all
again,
in this,
same
in
moment,
this together here
moment, but
That's
three different things.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Right. So it's it's one of those things where there's some interesting parallels between what the First Order did with kidnapping kids to be First Order troopers, and kind of, what the Jedi did.
Yeah,
where they did it with the parents' permission, presumably, but they plucked these children from their parents and raised them to be space wizards, which, is cool, especially if you're a slave boy, but it's really, it's one of those things where his life was garbage and was worth nothing. And he was treated very terribly. And the only person that he had were, his, here and there friends on the pod racing scene and all, and his mother. So, for him to be plucked away from her after having got to know her, but still at such a young age, that was his person. That was the only person he had loved prior to Padme. So, and you don't really see that in The Phantom Menace so much as you do in the Attack of the Clones and all, when he's got these visions, these dreams and nightmares and such. But the death of her kind of impacts him like the death of his whole family.
Right.
And so then there's nothing left of that. So where do you go from there? And who are you? And sort of what ties do you then form? What bonds do you make at that point? And, you know, it leads to him leaning more on Padme and more on Palpatine.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and I think also just the fear of losing his mom and then losing her, and then going into episode 3, he that attachment he forms with Padme, and then that fear of losing her and the dreams that he's having ultimately really leads him to going all the way to the dark side, trying to save her and being manipulated by Palpatine and everything. So I think that's all connected.
Mm-hmm.
A fear of loss.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm going to step away from that moment completely. You guys have covered it pretty well.
All right.
I'm going to go much later in that movie, and I'm going with the Jedi joining the war. You know, up until this point, the Order itself, I think, is, you know, kind of already on the wrong path. You know, Pat mentioned, you know, the whole thing about taking kids, and, you know, granted that it might be with parents' permission, but, you know, we do find out later that isn't necessary so much. You know, Luke does okay without that. Rey does okay without that. So I mean, you know, we find out that that's, you know, maybe not necessary, but I think the Jedi joining the war at the end of that movie is kind of the moment where they pick a side, where they're not peacekeepers anymore. And, you know, Ahsoka mentions this in the Clone Wars, you know, where she's struggling with the idea of the Jedi being keepers of the peace or being soldiers. And at this moment, they become soldiers, and, you know, it's they do it from an area where they are. I think they're trying to fight for peace, but I don't think that that's actually keeping the peace that they're, you know, that they were trying to do originally. So for me, that moment for the Jedi, for the Order, is a pivotal turning point for them, and probably a downward one. It's probably one that takes them to their demise.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good point. And, you know, especially with the, you know, like Josh was saying about the loss, and of course Pat was saying as well with Shmi, you know, you could tack in there like a Clone Wars pivotal moment is when, you know, before we hit Revenge of the Sith, you know, Anakin loses Ahsoka, you know, as a character arc, and then he's got that further piece of what became almost part of his extended family, then also leaves as well. So like, and again, how many times have we said it about the Clone Wars enriching the prequels? That transition point between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith is like almost fully understandable where he's sitting at when he gets into the Revenge of the Sith. You know, it's a tough load.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about the Clone Wars, then I guess are we doing this? Are we getting into this?
If you want to do Clea,
go for it.
I mean, I feel like we've, you know, taken our first steps into an animated world here. So okay, in that case, then I think the pivotal moment for Anakin in the Clone Wars is the expulsion of Ahsoka from the Jedi Order, because it showed him, and he was on her side, so it shows him their sort of rigidity with, you know, all the rules are the rules, and she, you know, is, you know, found guilty or whatever when she wasn't, and just their blindness towards reason, towards other viewpoints, and so that kind of soured them in his eyes, first of all, and then second of all, his little sister was gone now, and, you know, the fact that she was exonerated and allowed to come back and she didn't, it's just that was also a blow to him because she didn't want a part of that. These people accused her, expelled her, and then were like, "We're sorry, you can come back," and she's like, "No, I ain't doing that." So so then not only did she go through that, and and he was this group that he's a part of is just absolutely dismissing her, and then she's gone, so he loses another family member and sees the Jedi as their fault.
Yeah.
God, yeah.
So from his point of view, the Jedi are evil.
Yeah, and I agree. I absolutely think that my pivotal moment from the Clone Wars would be the way that the Jedi Council handles the situation with Ahsoka, and that actually is going to lead to my pivotal moment in Episode 3, which I won't reveal yet. But it's very similar to just the way the Jedi Council handles Ahsoka. So,
very cool.
Charles, did you have one for Clone Wars?
I did actually. Mine was Qui-Gon's discovery of the living force and force communication, and how that really does set up for the future the way that the Jedi are then able to have that support system that is beyond the corporeal being. And then obviously we know how that plays into A New Hope, and then all the OT in general, and then the sequel trilogy as well. So yeah, so the Lost Missions there, that's season 6.
Yes.
Yep.
Those are some rich, awesome lore episodes in there, and that was Qui-Gon being an awesome character, having him as the sort of the starting point of that is really cool.
I love that one. Josh, since you were ready for Episode 3, why don't you just go ahead and give us yours?
All right. Mine for Episode 3 is, Mace Windu's line and the whole decision that you're on this council, but we do not grant you the rank of master. And I just think the way the council handles Anakin, and that again fuels his distrust for the council and his leaning on Palpatine, and his trust for Palpatine grows, which ultimately leads to his turn to the dark side. So yeah, I think it's got to be that moment for me.
That's cool.
Nice. About Pat.
I'm gonna say the opera scene with Anakin and Palpatine. Because
it's a great one.
I mean, that's a pretty obvious one, right?
I mean, the part where Anakin chokes Padme because then she gets sad and dies.
No.
Go ahead, Adam.
I want to hear your take on the opera scene. I definitely want to hear it.
In that case, what it does to the viewer is, if you've seen the films in release order, Palpatine's the bad guy when you first see him in The Phantom Menace. And you're like, okay, well, I can see how you don't just get that much power as the bad guy. You have to kind of grow towards it and stab a bunch of people in the back and things like that. So you expect him to be kind of like not, I'm going to force lighting you and all this. So like you expect him not to be that when you first see him. But in that scene, you really get a sense of how manipulative, how much planning went into his entire arc, and really just how he knows Anakin so well to say just the right things at the right times to not only get information from Anakin, about his mental being and his psyche, but also like intel on the Jedi and the Council when he has them spy back. He's he's a triple agent, I think, at that point. But you can see that that's when he absolutely has his claws in Anakin. Mm-hmm. And then Anakin confirms it later when he's like, you know I'm a Sith Lord, right? And Anakin's like, okay. And not like, what? You gotta go. You know what I mean? So, you know, all these little steps have led to this, which of course he's a master manipulator, but that scene really shows Anakin's almost acceptance of that, which is a very scary thing.
Yeah.
All right, Adam, go.
The one moment that you mentioned there, where you said that that's just kind of the scene where he sinks his claws into Anakin. And the reason why I chose this is that one line where he is the power to save the ones he loves from dying. And that look that Anakin gives him, you know, that's the moment he's got him. And I think that everything happens after that. It's because of that moment. You know, that's what Anakin needed to hear at that point to just lose sight of everything else, because he has to save Padme, and hearing that one line is what does it. So for me, that's that pivotal moment in that movie. How about Charles? Go ahead.
Pass. Mine sucks.
Okay, cool.
Fair enough.
It was okay. Well, the fact
Mine sucks.
I spent all deep, but I didn't find that was awesome. No,
he likes C-3PO.
Serious? Did you say C-3PO? So my pivotal moment is when C-3PO got his mind wiped, when his memory wiped.
Okay, yeah. That's not bad.
No, that's not bad. I'm laughing that Pat nailed it.
It's the return of the Unimind right here.
I thought maybe that it was that he got all fixed up and cleaned up between episodes 2 and 3. You know,
ought to.
That would have been very surface level. You know,
shiny metal. No, well, I mean,
finally got that oil bath.
Exactly. Thank you, Master Maker. When that happens in the in the movie, and you see him coming down the hall with R2, and he says, and have the protocol's droid memories wiped. And first of all, R2 essentially laughs at him, yeah,
pretty much.
But what an interesting point of okay, well, that sort of fits into A New Hope and sort of gives you sort of more context for that. But
yeah,
the amount of story that C-3PO has seen at that point, maybe not as much as R2, but context for the future that R2 is allowed to keep, obviously, throughout, but C-3PO isn't. And what kind of impact would that have had in the future had that memory not been wiped? And what kind of integral pieces of information could however C-3PO would have delivered it in his condescending ways sometimes, but yeah, that was sort of a moment for me. It's like, well, imagine if he did have it, it could have changed a lot of the storylines, or at least some of the advice that he could have given as a second hand in the 2 other trilogies.
Yeah,
Master Luke, if only you could fight off Tusken Raiders like your father. See, and I can identify with 3PO in that sense, because he must feel just like I did in college level English when my essay got erased, and I had that sense of dread and fear that it was gone. It was all gone.
Oh my.
Oh dear.
Oh,
yeah. But one question that I had about Josh, about what you had said about Mace, do you think, because also, and then we saw that in season 7, right, with Ahsoka, when he's very dismissive to her when she's trying to speak to Anakin, but do you think if that line or that his dismissal from the council would have been delivered by someone else, do you think that would have changed? I mean, obviously, ultimately, him not being in the council is not being on the council, but just the way that Mace delivered that was so dismissive. And
at least he didn't call him a citizen.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think had it been delivered by Yoda or Obi-Wan or somebody else, it could have potentially made a difference. Yeah.
Cool.
Do you think Mace is that one guy in the council that everyone else just kind of shakes their heads when he speaks? Like, oh, here we go.
This guy has no filter.
Right. He's like the fundamentalist in your group.
Yeah.
They're like, man, here he goes. Yoda's like, Master Windu has the floor again. No good can come.
A handbrake he does not have.
No force filter has he.
Well, I had one from Rebels, if we're going chronologically.
Sure.
And I picked Fulcrum because I think the reveal there was just. First of all, I loved that moment. I
Wait,
was
Fulcrum
floored.
1.0 or Fulcrum 2.0?
The Ahsoka one.
There you go.
Okay. That kind of comes, I think, at a desperate moment, and then for me to find out that that's Ahsoka changed everything for me. And that's not really like an in-universe thing, I know, but at that moment, I was like, okay, Ahsoka's here. She knows what's up. She's going to handle this. And so for me, that was a turning point as a viewer. I think when you're in that moment, I think that maybe, Kanan for sure would kind of get the significance of having someone like Ahsoka there. You would think that he kind of gets the gravitas of that. But for me, man, just seeing Ahsoka come down and seeing that reveal was just huge for me. So that's my turning point in Rebels.
That was a great scene. I love that.
Yeah, that was exactly my point as well. And like when Pat convinced me to watch the Clone Wars, and I watched them, and then as soon as I finished the Clone Wars, he said, you got to watch Rebels now.
Yeah.
But he didn't tell me anything about Rebels.
Yeah.
He didn't spoil anything. And I remember the day that I was at the treadmill at work, and I was at lunch, and when she was revealed as Fulcrum, I literally stopped my treadmill and texted him, and several bad words surrounding the words Ahsoka is Fulcrum. But how, and I totally agree with you, Adam, was that it actually the elation that I had was that not only is it such a cool in-universe connection, it just brought in, it's just like this tidal wave of understanding. Pushed forward into Rebels, like, holy wow, this just ratcheted it up to the next level, because you have this sort of band of rebels that are doing their thing, and Lothal and all the cool stuff that's going on there, and you drop Ahsoka in there. Oh my gosh! And it's just like I literally had, like I said, I had to stop my workout to text, because like the implications just were immediately like mind blowing.
It takes it from just being a little group of like freedom fighters to like this is something. There's something that's going to happen here.
Legit.
Was there any other Rebels moments?
I think Kanan's death in Rebels is a huge moment. I don't know if it's pivotal, but it's a huge moment because for not being fully trained and for having to kind of find his way in this galaxy post-purge with with the knowledge and skill that he had gained. I'd read the Star Wars A New Dawn book, and then the Last Padawan comic about Kanan, and he really tried to run and hide from the whole Jedi mindset and practice and all after the purge, for self-preservation. But then, when he linked up with Hera in New Dawn and started to put together this band of freedom fighters and all, really embraced that again. And that act of utter selflessness and preservation of, and it's echoed in Rogue One, where we win by saving what we love, or that's the Last
Rogue One.
Jedi.
I love that quote in Rogue One.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but so his act of it, because there may have been another way to get out of that situation, but this was a sure way to get everyone else safe, and it was a true act of heroism, selflessness, and it was a great display of what Jedi stand for.
Yeah, it was a very Jedi
very
thing.
True.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move on to Rogue One.
No, I don't get to give my Rebels moment.
No, no. All right, moving on to Rogue One. Go ahead, Josh.
That is rough. I'll be quick because but no, I got to go with the World Between Worlds and Ezra pulling Ahsoka out of that situation, that confrontation with Vader. I mean,
wow.
I don't necessarily want them to go use the World Between Worlds in future series or anything like that, but Ahsoka being able to survive that moment and then go on in the story, and maybe we'll get to see her possibly in The Mandalorian or her own spin-off series, as a result of that whole thing. So I got to go with that moment.
Very cool.
Cool. Now can I go on to Rogue One, Josh, please?
I guess. Yeah, sure.
All right.
Wait.
All right. I'll just go ahead and kick this one off. So, Rogue One, I think the most pivotal moment in that is actually the very front of the movie, where Jyn survives. She's not found by Krennic. So if she's taken in that moment, I don't quite know what else happens. I mean, her life from that point on is, kind of sucks. But she's around then later to be what she, what the rebellion needed her to be. Is there someone else that maybe could have done what she did? Maybe. But also, Galen kind of builds that in for her, that almost becomes her thing to do because he knows she's out there, that she can do it. And so he almost builds that around her, so her being able to hide and get out of that moment, even though she loses both her parents at that time, almost had to happen, for that all to work out the way it did. Without that, I don't know how we get the Death Star plans to the rebellion later.
And I think when you mention that maybe could someone else have done that, I don't really think so. Because she makes the connection to Stardust.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
No one else would have made that connection, and so they could have been in that, data room, and they got out by the skin of their teeth because she knew
Stardust was. Yeah, right.
If it was anyone else, they would have, if they had time to, peruse and find it, would have been able to do that, but they didn't. And they would have been thwarted because they almost were.
Yeah.
And she had that knowledge of the nickname Stardust and how that was a message to her. And she still almost didn't make it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and relating to all of this, mine was Galen planting the weakness in the Death Star. That was just a major revelation for me when I watched Rogue One. Was like, oh, this is why, shooting a proton torpedo into this, little opening is going to take down the Death Star, because Galen planted that weakness within it. So I thought that was just a really cool connection and pivotal moment.
Very cool.
Absolutely. Charles.
I wrote down here, I put the hammerhead ramming of the Star Destroyer at Scarif. because that really, and again, almost like self-sacrifice. I don't really know whether or not that crew or that ship made it, the blockade runner made it out of that, but they, them slamming into the shield then allowed the onslaught to happen, and that was, for me, I remember, just that moment of realization that's like, wow, would a tactical move be very sacrificial, and like you don't know if you're going to come out of that, but talk about a pivotal moment for the entire battle itself, one small piece of it allowing for the rest of it to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Pat,
I think that's a really, really cool moment there. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. Did you have one, Pat, or were you kind of expounding on what I said?
Well, I think with Rogue One being such a standalone film with encapsulated characters, I think the fact that Cassian didn't shoot Galen is kind of pivotal. Pivotal for his character.
Yeah.
Because at the beginning we see him like, dude, you better shut up, and the dude does. He's like, pew pew. So it's one of those things where like he doesn't mind offing somebody if it serves the purpose, which would have been the same for Galen, but it's kind of a turn of conscience for him, and then it kind of separates him from the Saul Guerrera type and gives him a little bit more compassion for, in the end, when you see, that he and Jin aren't going to survive, there's no doubt in your mind that he's inherently good at that point.
Wow, that's cool.
Because when you first see him, you're like, oh, okay. This is one of those movies. All right. So,
you're right. He's often the guy, like straight up from the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I think it's a great pivotal moment for his character.
Yeah.
And therefore the impact that his death has on the film and the viewer.
Absolutely. All right. A New Hope. Who wants to kick this one off? I have a very very minor one, and I'll save that for later. Yeah, go for it.
All right.
So I do have one, despite not having been told in advance. I do have one.
It's a miracle.
It's almost like I've seen the movie.
Yes. Me, it's it's obvious, but it's still there for me. It was R2's capture by the Jawas, and him getting off of that sort of triggers the whole coming off of the sandcrawler and meeting Luke and all that stuff. So had he followed necessarily C-3PO, would the same outcome would have happened? But for me, that was always the big thing was R2's capture, and whether or not it was part of the Force or whatever, but him having that unfortunate part of it to happen at the same time as being a pivotal part of it, it was pretty critical. It's flashing. There's R2 right there. So yeah, so it's a bit of an obvious one, but for me, that always, it's really tied as well to Revenge of the Sith, having seen that movie and then carrying it forward, knowing what R2 knows, and having him then being literally given as a gift to Luke at the homestead. It gives me even more of a stronger tie to like just how pivotal R2 then obviously is in the story, but how the access to that information and the knowledge that he has sort of is, has the potential to help the characters or give them guidance or at least have a positive impact on their trajectories.
I'm gonna step in here because mine's actually very close to that, and it's actually a little bit earlier than that. But Bolvan issuing the order not to fire on the escape pod because it didn't have any
Oh,
Didn't know. Yeah,
that's a good one.
If they had fired on that escape pod, none of that happens. Those plans are gone; they're destroyed.
Yep, it's very true.
I like to think of like an alternate reality where they're not idiots and they're not paying by the laser, as Family Guy says. And they do shoot the pod, right? But you got to think that they're robots. So like I feel pretty confident that they could, become very asteroid-like and asteroid-like and work their way through the atmosphere, and then sort of like Iron Man when he escapes the terrorists, but then he flies and then crashes into the sand. Yeah. That would be R2 and 3PO, and there'd be 3 pieces all over the place. But R2 would be relatively intact because he's more aerodynamic.
Right, and he's got that rocket thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Yes.
All right. So once again, R2 saves C-3PO. You're going too fast, R2.
Oh, this is why I hate being an asteroid. I think I think that's my headcanon for if they did get blown up.
Yeah.
But continue.
I like it. Mine would be the death of Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru. I think Luke is kind of hesitant to join Obi-Wan because I think he feels very committed to his family as it were on Tatooine and his responsibilities and everything, and he says, I can't get involved, I have work to do, but once they die, then he has all the motivation in the world to become a Jedi. So yeah, that was mine.
It is critical too, for sure.
Yeah. All his plans are.
I have to run the family business. Well, no family left, no business.
Yeah. All his plans are pretty much toast at that point. Too soon. Too soon. No. Okay. All right.
Dark.
That comment was toast.
All right.
I think my A New Hope turning point is since we skipped over Solo. Whatever. I mean, it is what it is. It's your show, not mine. It's mine.
Oh yeah, I guess we did skip over Solo. My bad.
Look, I want to tell you how to run things, but anyway. So I think mine has to do with Han Solo, and I think it's his return to the Battle of Yavin.
Ooh.
Because that is sort of the turning point of him as a character. And I was just watching the end of Solo this morning to get a Solo bit for this that was unused. And when Enfys Nest is like, hey, look, we could use a fighter like you, and he's like, yeah, don't hold your breath, don't count on it. That was his mindset there, and that's kind of how he is going into A New Hope. And listen, kid, he's in it for the money. So that being said, him coming back when he's already been paid, and he's already been he's already left, and he's like, oh, may the force be with you, I guess, or whatever. So he's already out of the picture. So for him to turn around and come back to help shows at least the start of a change of heart for him as a character, to not be all about himself and to think more of the bigger picture and of what he can do to better the galaxy, not just his own fortune.
Yeah, I think it goes along with what Kira told Han in Solo about him being, I know who you really are. You're the good guy.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, he is the good guy.
Since Pat really wants to talk Solo right now, let's just do Solo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do Solo.
Well, And I actually have a
See,
moment.
I forced their hands. Did you see that?
Yes, yes.
That's how the Force works.
Way to use the Force.
Or I forced their hands.
Oh, oh man!
I'll see myself out.
Are you here all day?
Tip your waiters.
Unfortunately for you, yes.
So Solo, I'm going to go a little bit in an opposite direction of him being the good guy, though, for my pivotal moment. And I'm going to say Han shooting first in Solo was a pivotal moment. Because when it comes to survival, he will shoot first if he has to, and he takes Beckett out because Beckett would have killed him, and Beckett says it himself. And he does the same thing with Greedo in the unaltered version of A New Hope. So.
That's a great one. That's a fantastic one.
Yeah, but then we don't get McClunky.
That was my one of two because I couldn't decide. Now you've made my choice easier.
What is your choice then?
My choice is I want to be funny and say Lando leaving his cape closet there in the Falcon. But Han didn't really appreciate it as much, so I'm going to say L3's merger with the Falcon.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay.
Because
that's solid.
I mean, how much did they get done with the Falcon? Not only Han and Chewie, but then Lando in Return of the Jedi, and then, non-pilot Rey in The Force Awakens. All this stuff that the pilot, that the Falcon has been through, and a lot of that, I'm sure, has to do with the navigation system from L3.
Good point. Charles, how about you? He's shaking his head.
He's struggling.
I'm going to go with Lando leaving his capes in the closet. Some jerk stole mine.
Wait. I know what you're going to say.
What?
You're going to say Clint Howard's inclusion in the film.
There we go. Pivotal character. He saved that movie despite his brother's attempts. No, but mine was L3's merger into the Falcon as well, and having that breadth of knowledge, but also like the navigation pieces, but also her character and her tenacity, and like as we saw in Solo, she has a very against the authoritarian stand. She's she speaks her mind. She doesn't take any crap from anybody, but has the humor and all that stuff, and so that those characteristics being injected into the Millennium Falcon. I mean, even calls back to C-3PO, when he's trying to fix the what was it? He was in Empire, which we're getting to soon, when he's trying to fix the Falcon when they're in the on the asteroid, and it's like, I don't understand this dialect of this ship. It's like, well, now you know where it comes from. But yeah, that was my pivotal moment for sure.
My pivotal moment in Solo would just have to be Han getting thrown into a certain pit with a certain Wookiee. I mean, not only does it kick off one of the best friendships in Star Wars, it might be one of the best friendships in movie history. But I mean, then those two become no pun intended, but a force that the rebellion just really needed. I mean, that was the stuff that they ended up doing for the rebellion, and the people that they saved. I don't think a lot of this happens without those guys. So.
Yeah,
I mean, they become Han and Chewie, which is such an iconic duo.
Yeah. Okay, Empire. Josh, I know you love Empire. Why don't you go ahead and kick off Empire?
I do. It just happens to be my favorite movie of all time. For Empire, my favorite, or the pivotal moment, would be Luke's failure in the cave, when he's training with Yoda, and he sees what he could become if he would turn to the dark side. He takes his weapon in with him even when Yoda tells him not to, and we see that this is that moment where he realizes why he absolutely can't use his anger and turn to the dark side. And in Return of the Jedi, he even, he kind of looks at his mechanical hand as he's just beaten Darth Vader down, about to destroy him. And he realizes what he could become if he were to turn to the dark side.
That's
okay.
That's, I actually never, we've talked about that scene many times and heard about it. Never really had it quite put that way from that perspective, in the sense that his own introspection leads to his own his view of his failure versus what everyone else would think. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mine is extremely obvious, so I'm going to let you guys go ahead.
All right, so there's this scene where, like, Luke's battling Darth Vader.
Yeah.
And Vader's like, I'm your father. No. I think...
Okay, make jokes about that one.
It's just slightly pivotal.
Yeah. I mean, things could have gone differently if that didn't happen. No, I intentionally shied away from that. And I think that Luke, after he makes his jump fall from his battle with Vader, and then he's on the little antenna calling for Leia. I think that's pivotal because it establishes a connection between them that is supernatural and very forcey, and of course, that leads to the reason behind that being that they're siblings and everything else. But that really kind of strengthens. It's not like Obi-Wan speaking to him about going to the Dagobah system on Hoth and everything. It's him reaching out and kind of harnessing that aspect of the Force and really embracing some of the training and teachings that Yoda had given him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very also cool. Leaves Luke not hanging on the upside down antenna for the rest of his life. So I mean that's
true. The rest of his very short life.
Yeah, until the next garbage comes through.
Knocks him down. Oh man.
Clipped by a twin pod cloud car.
Oh man.
All right, Charles, what about you?
Me, it's Boba Fett's ability to predict Solo's move when they're dumping the garbage before jumping to light speed. Mm-hmm. Him being in there now, from like I'm not a huge fan of Boba Fett. Never really have been. Cool character, and we wouldn't have the Mandalorian without him. But from that moment is pretty brilliant in that he's able to be in that scene and understand what he's going to do and sort of see forward. And without him being able to track him, that was going to, give obviously through the clouds the whole bit. So that was for me was a pretty big moment.
Yeah. My big moment is the scene with Luke and Vader, and they're battling, and and I really went with that one. That was honestly my answer.
We figured someone would. So
yeah, someone had to take that one.
Had an unwritten rule that it wasn't going to be us.
Well, I went with it, and I tried, and I had to go with it, and I actually figured, that someone else would say it too, and I was okay with that because I was going to go from the perspective of in the Marvel's most recent run of Star Wars comics. That is, we know that that's a pivotal moment for Luke, but that actually is so pivotal that for a while it cuts off his connection to the Force. Like he actually is set so far back that he feels that he can't connect with the Force for a while, and it's so devastating, and he is. And then later we see that he fully believes it's a lie. And I think that was the 5th issue of that series. where he's confronted by another seems like a former Jedi. You know, she reads into his thoughts, and she sees that moment where, you know, Vader tells him that he's his father, and he fully just says, it's a lie, it's not true. You know, so that, you know, not just because, you know, we know that Anakin, you know, had offspring at that point, and that they're related, and, you know, that's one of the biggest reveals in movie history and all that other stuff. The personal implications on Luke were just huge for him, and seeing that play out in the Star Wars comics is just reinforces that a little bit more for me. So that's where I wanted to go with that one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. Yeah, that comic is so great. I mean, all the fantastic.
Yeah.
And see, Pat reads the comics a lot more than I do, even though I have them available to me. And that's the kind of depth that, like you're saying, Adam, that, you know, you've got then a completely different subtext that's canon, obviously, that gives the scene a different perspective, and that's really awesome. That, you know, despite the availability of reading said comic, I didn't know that, and that's a really cool angle, because
it gives it so much more depth. Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, even though that scene itself is deep enough, just with that revelation, it gives it an added level, you know.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Return of the Jedi. Let's start off with Pat.
All right, so Star Wars is about hope, and I mean, the first one is now called A New Hope, and you know, Rogue One deals a lot with hope. Like, hope is a major theme in the franchise, and I think towards the end of the film, actually the very end of the film, when they're, you know, having their victory party on Endor, and Luke looks over and he sees Force Yoda and Force Obi-Wan, and then Force Daddy shows up, and he sees Anakin among his, you know, his Jedi pals and his teachers and mentors and brothers, really. That gives Luke a sense of hope for himself, for his lineage, and for his father, that redemption arc for Anakin.
Oh,
and
cool.
I think that's really a great message to him as a character, and then also to the viewer.
Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Charles.
Well, thank you for not taking mine. So I was hoping you seemed like you're heading down that
Not
road.
this
I was about
time.
to just shut down the whole thing here. You know, a bit obvious, but it's still, you know, Pat alluded to it before with on Empires. Is the Leia being Luke's sister, and
If you mention Boba Fett, I swear to the maker.
now he's gone. So her being Luke's sister, and obviously how it sets up the sequel trilogy and her arc and her massive importance in there, but that connection that was made, like you said, Pat, on you know, in Empire, and how that was sort of the foundation of that, and giving even more hope to the fact that from Luke's perspective, now he's got family again, and that's a huge part of it. And even though for me, I see that as for Luke's telling Leia that she's his sister, that's when it becomes real for me, and probably real for Luke, because until he tells her, she has no clue. But that family connection finally is made, even though he probably knew, and maybe she knew, and obviously, like he even says, you know, search your feelings. You know, it's like it's you know it was there, but having it out in the open, that bond was immediately created, and that was a huge for him for sure, and for her.
Mm-hmm.
Josh, go ahead.
Mine, I don't even know why this one came into my head, but it was the first thing I thought of for some reason when Chewie commandeers the AT-ST in the Battle of Endor.
Cool.
Because I mean, Han and Leia are in a situation where they're trying to get that door open, and they're going to be goners if there's somebody else in this ATST. But Chewie opens up the top hatch, and so they turn the tide of the battle and end up winning the battle. So for some reason that just popped into my head. It's a Chewie moment for me. So.
It's great.
Yeah, definitely. Mine is a little weird. Like, it's actually kind of like a comedic moment, but I think it's pretty important. C-3PO kind of becoming a god to the Ewoks. Because not only does that become the device that kind of lets Han and Luke not get roasted on an open fire. But I think it also ends up being the moment where, the Ewoks kind of become attached to this cause, and, we see in that movie that even the smallest of creatures can overthrow an empire, and they kind of needed that. And so, I think that moment is kind of where the Ewoks almost sign up, for their part in the rebellion.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah. Turns the tide, just like the whole Gungan thing that Josh was talking about. That allows them to.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought about.
Force.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I have one from The Mandalorian. Does anyone else have one?
Ooh,
I do.
I have an overtly obvious one.
I do too.
Boy.
All right.
I think mine is as well.
Okay, on 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
The child.
I think we're all in agreement on this one.
All right, I want to see where you guys go with this, because I have I don't know if I'll go with the same way. So why don't you go ahead, Charles?
Well, obviously, it's the child.
Yeah.
But this, not to get too spoilery, but this is going to be somewhat the foundation of when you guys come on our show and talking about what makes Star Wars. We have this Mandalorian show, and it starts off obviously as this sort of Wild West and a really cool show, and then we are introduced to the child, and we see it as obviously as a Baby Yoda, whatever you want to call it. And then we do find out that this child, this character, is a Force user, and for the first time in that series, we get a callback into sort of the larger world of Star Wars. And, that's a really cool thing to think about. It's like this series, The Mandalorian, stands on its own as this fall of the Empire between Return of the Jedi and, Force Awakens, and everything's in disarray. And you got this really cool story going on. And you've got obviously this child who represents power, and but it turns the narrative of that series more towards not the Skywalker saga, but the larger accepted view of what the Star Wars story is. And it's really interesting, obviously, and the story is not told yet because we got season 2 coming up soon. But that was my perspective of why the child came into the story was a pivotal moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that to kind of jump on that one's back a little bit, I think the Mandalorian as a character is cool, and cooler than Boba Fett, but but that's kind of what he is, really. He's a kick-tail sort of bounty hunter that, is placed by his rules in this Wild West Outer Rim Star Wars story. The discovery of the child kind of gives him a sense of purpose. And I think, as fun as it would be to talk about a show about a Mandalorian, when like in the celebration, when they were talking about the Mandalorian at the panel, and basically they were like, he's this cool bounty hunter and he does cool stuff, and we're like, that's cool, but and they divulge nothing about the series,
right?
And as cool as that is to kind of think about this bounty hunter, I would think that just just his bounty hunting being, even as complicated a profession as it may be, I think that's very limiting. It's limiting to the character, and it's limiting to the story, because you fall into this sort of repetition of, oh, now he found Horatio Sands and put him in carbonite. All right, cool. Now, he's going to find some Rhodian and throw him in. It's like, all right, cool. Now he collects his paycheck and punches out. You know what I mean? It's like, that's only going to last so long.
Right. I agree so much with that, because my fear at the beginning of The Mandalorian, before watching it or before knowing much about it, was that it was just going to kind of be this cool but surface level type of thing. And like, would there be something deeper to it? Would there be something more meaningful to it? And I think that the child definitely made that connection.
I have never been one for bounty hunter stories, so I was almost kind of ho-hum on The Mandalorian hearing about it at first, because just that bounty hunter story doing cool things, I'm like, all right, fine. And then that reveal changed everything for me,
Yep, for sure.
And for me, the reason why it's pivotal is, of course it changes Din Djarin's course, it does all that stuff. It changes the meaning of that show. For me, it's also pivotal for storytelling going forward in the franchise as a whole. That is the new Yoda character. And, as we get 26 years down the road in the universe, and, maybe Rey is looking to start up her order, she has that natural character, that natural being that is super strong with the Force. That could almost be the next generation Yoda going forward.
Cool.
So for me, from a storytelling perspective, I think that is incredibly pivotal and super smart way to go forward with that.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I think that the Jedi Temple Archives podcast just released an episode the other day where they, kind of go over the trailer for season 2, and they talk about where that can go for Yoda's species as a race, and how we know nothing about them, and how, we may get the first ever sort of details or history about them, about that species, and where they're from, or how many of them are there. Anything that has had sort of a moratorium on it for the last 40 years.
Speaking of that moratorium, this is a little controversial, but do you think that we'll get that, or do you want that? I do. Personally, I do. I hope we get it, and I do want it.
I think that with all of the material that we have now, I'm glad I don't know Yoda's history right now. And having seen the films and really there's no supplementary material about Yoda or from Yoda,
right.
Intentionally. And I have liked that, because it surrounds the character in mystery.
Right.
And I think that that's kind of crucial for him on the Jedi Council in the prequels, and also as this weird little frog dude that Yoda comes across, that Luke comes across on Dagobah.
Yeah.
Because you're like, what is
also
strange
apparently has
creature.
a taste for frogs, which is a little weird when you think about it.
I've always been one to shy away from cannibalism, but whatever. I mean, it's not my place. I'd stick with bone broth, but fine, whatever. Stop frogs. So I think snippets. I think, and we had talked to Charles and I talked about this with Tom, from the Hyperion Adventures podcast. We in the season 1 of The Mandalorian, when you have those flashbacks to Din's childhood, where he, throughout the series, you get these little snippets that you can kind of piece together what happened to him and how he got, how he became a foundling and became a Mandalorian and all this. I think that if they utilize that same technique with maybe snippets of the species and kind of their history and things like that, if they pepper in those details, I think it could be really cool without completely opening it up and being like, so here's the entire history of Yoda's species. Yeah. I think if they deliver it properly, I think it could be really cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm in the same boat that, from the standpoint where we are right now, we haven't needed Yoda's backstory. Right. It's there.
Yeah.
But like you were saying, Adam, where 25 years from now and the child being older, sort of flat, going forward for the story of Star Wars in the universe, there's potential. And now with the announcement of the High Republic, now we're going backwards and we've got a younger Yoda. So inherently those earlier appearances by Yoda will likely have something more to his character. So if they do start to come out, again, not a floodgate, but here's the history, the entire history of Yoda in one book. But they sort of pepper those in because the story makes sense to have it at that point. I'm fine with that, and we're not going to be shoehorning in a history and a complete exposure of or an expose on a character. It's going to be hopefully it's going to be framed within the way the story is being told of the High Republic.
Right.
Yeah. For me, I don't think I need or necessarily want too much information about Yoda's species, just because I do like that mystery around the character, like Pat mentioned. But when it comes to the child specifically and getting back to why I think he's so pivotal, I think it goes beyond just the story elements. I think it kind of branches out to the whole Star Wars fandom, where, a lot of people were split about The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker and the sequel trilogy and the fandom. But I think the child was a character that kind of brought Star Wars fans together again, and something that everybody could get behind. So for me, that was why the child's so pivotal.
Very cool.
Awesome. All right. So we're moving ahead in the timeline now, jumping into The Force Awakens. Josh, why don't you start with Force Awakens?
I think for me, it's this character Rey meeting Finn and meeting Han, and where that takes her character. Because in the beginning of the film, she's on this desert planet. She's on Jakku. She's counting the days since her parents have gone. She's waiting for them to come back. Even when she first leaves the planet, she wants to go back, and Finn's like, "You crazy? You want to go back to Jakku?"
Why does everyone want to go back there?
Why does everybody want to go back to Jakku? And I'm with Finn on that one, but I think it's in that whole Maz telling Rey that the belonging you seek is not behind you, it's ahead. These connections she makes with these characters become her new family. So I think that has a great deal to do with her whole character arc.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
I'm gonna kind of bookend that and take away one of those new family members. I think the death of Han Solo is a very pivotal moment for Han, because then he dies. But Chewie and Rey, because Rey just met this dude and's like, oh man, this guy's teaching me all this stuff and giving me a sense of belonging, and now he's dead. And but most importantly, to his son, to Kylo Ren, because he, you go into this movie seeing this black-clad character with a red lightsaber and a helmet, and you're like, well, he's no Vader, And then the little effer kills Han Solo, and you're like, excuse me, no. And so So it immediately, and knowing that it's his own son, you're like, that little bastard. So basically, as you can tell, this moment is still very sour in my mind and in my heart. Yeah. So I think that's a huge moment for the new trilogy and for successfully cementing Kylo Ren as a bad guy and as a convincing bad guy, because we already have Darth Vader. So you're like, this is like the really the biggest bad in cinematic history. And now you got a new guy that looks kind of like him, and you're like, okay, discount Vader, whatever. But he's like super bad, and I hate him so much.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I mean, you see Rey's reaction to that, and then a couple weeks later, she's like, he's kind of cute.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, I mean, and he's a little sexy with that little scar thing going on.
Yeah, yeah.
She left her mark on him for sure.
Yeah.
She left his mark on him. That was a good one.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, Mark.
Let's see here, Charles.
Me, it's Finn's awakening. And
okay.
For as much as the storyline, and it's been much maligned, and the bookends of JJ's movies, and but and then we've talked about this, Pat and I. We talked about it with many people about the perception of the movies, the sequel trilogy, and the challenges they had, and all that kind of stuff. But within retrospect, you look back at when I rewatched Force Awakens again, and how much more I appreciate that moment when he has that awakening and he sort of comes out of that programming on Jakku. And then you fast forward that through the entire 3 movies of the sequel trilogy, where he gets to at the end, it sort of makes sense for me. So it's a retroactive appreciation more of that moment, because how pivotal it is for his character, let alone the impact it is for the story. So I just have a lot of appreciation for that part.
Yeah, I'll echo that. I love that. I love that moment. For me, my Force Awakens pivotal moment is Poe crash landing on Jakku. It's so close to where Rey happens to be, because it's close enough for Finn to walk to her, basically. Finding the granddaughter of Palpatine, however you feel about that. I mean, it's one of those things that's like only the Force could have done that type of thing. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And for me, being religious, it's like it's not coincidence. I don't think those types of events. That battle happening over Jakku, the crash landing right where it needed to be. It's that type of moment that is doesn't just happen by accident. I don't think.
Not so coincidental.
Yeah. So Last Jedi. Unless we're talking Resistance, do we have any Resistance things?
I do have one for Resistance.
Okay.
And this is for Rob over at the Jedi Temple Archives podcast, another member of our Red5 Network.
Yeah.
And he's a huge fan of the Resistance show, but I think he's even a bigger fan of Niku. And I think that the introduction of Niku as a character from Rob's perspective is probably the most pivotal moment of all Star Wars. So yeah, that would be my suggestion for Resistance.
Fair enough. All right.
He's gonna kill us.
I can't believe you said it. He's gonna get us.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Last Jedi.
I don't think
I'll go ahead
and they're still recovering from Niku.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and start with Last Jedi so you guys can recover. Yeah, I mean, man, this moment is what just sent my head into a tailspin pretty much when I watched the movie for the first time. And it has nothing to do with Luke. I actually, enjoyed how Luke was handled in this movie, which is unpopular. But anyway, for me, it was the moment when Snoke met an untimely end. Because I was so shocked by this moment, I didn't even know what to think. Like, what? They just killed the main villain of this trilogy in the second film. Like, how does that happen? And that just kind of blew my mind. And and of course, it just led to Palpatine being brought back in Rise of Skywalker and everything. And yeah, I don't even know what happened the first time I saw that movie after that moment, because my mind was so blown by that. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
And then, unfortunately, you have one of the most visually stunning lightsaber battles right after that.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I was like, I couldn't even process
and all this is happening.
Yeah. I was struggling.
Yep. All right.
Charles.
Let's see.
Or Pat. I don't care.
Go ahead, buddy.
Either one.
Okay. For me, it's Luke placing the Jedi text in the Falcon. It ends up being, obviously it's a moment that I missed in the first watching, because it was just just one of those things that you're sort of focused on Chewie and the roasting of the
Borg.
The pork. My gosh, my wife is going to kill me. Porg. And so you see him sort of stealthily run up onto the ramp of the Falcon and putting him in there, and then you of course see them later on in the movie. And which is a cool callback too to the Rise of Skywalker, where she's literally referencing those books. And if it wasn't for Luke putting them on the ship, she wouldn't have access to those texts. And he obviously understood, maybe not as 100% clearly as where his character was at that point, what was going to happen, but he knew that something was coming to an end, and he needed to give, and just like Yoda said, you need to teach from your failures. So he was getting prepared for teaching Rey the best he could, and part of that teaching was those books and giving her access, or at least to find them and learn from them.
I gotta say, my mind is blown once again, because I had no idea that Luke put the books in there. I thought somehow Rey took them and put them in there. I never noticed that. I mean, can you actually see him doing it in the scene?
It's very dark, and unless you're looking for it.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look for that.
Yeah, it's when he's roasting it under the belly of the Falcon, and you see him in darkness, of course, sort of just run up the ramp, and that's what I'm thinking he's putting in there.
Okay. Yeah, I never thought of that. That's awesome.
Pat, how about you?
I think just to kind of reinforce that with some history, the journey to the Force Awakens, that comic with Luke right after
Shattered Empire?
Return of the Jedi.
What's that? Shattered Empire?
Yes, that's the one.
Okay.
Where he goes with Poe's mother to this Imperial fortress and gets the remnants of the Force tree.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's further expanded upon in The Rise of Skywalker, when Lando talks about how they were looking for artifacts and all. That's something that's obviously very important to Luke, and that he spent, when the dust settled from the Empire and everything, he spent his time trying to find and gain knowledge. And so obviously that would be all for naught if it was burned up by Yoda's little lightning trick on the tree there. So it's very, very pivotal, very important for the future of the Jedi, which was Luke's goal, was to allow for the Jedi to keep going. But my Last Jedi pivotal moment has to do with the Force, and that movie basically turning what we know about it on its ear, and the Force Skype connection between Rey and Kylo really reinforced the fact that, you know, the Force is really something we know some stuff about, but it is supernatural and it goes beyond our, not necessarily our comprehension, but it goes beyond what we've learned from what we've seen so far.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about moving rocks, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it does have to do with moving rocks. Yes. But yeah, I mean, it's some really cool abilities that are kind of divergent from the telekinesis and telepathic things that you know they did in the prequels and that Obi-Wan was able to do.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. My last Jedi moment, and I can't believe I'm picking this one, but Leia surviving for a couple reasons. First of all, because of the Leia Poppins, and I just hated the way that scene looked. Second of all, because I actually do think that would have been a perfect death scene for Leia, and seeing the ramifications of that on Kylo Ren, even though he didn't pull the trigger, you know, seeing how that would have played out with him. But knowing what happens to Luke later in that movie, Rey would have no one had Leia not survived. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Leia's the one that goes on to actually train her, and to get her to a place where she can do what she needs to do after that. So, for me, no matter how I feel about that scene, Leia surviving is pivotal in, you know, the journey of Rey and, you know, vanquishing evil from the galaxy. So Leia surviving is my Last Jedi pivotal moment. Which brings us to the Rise of Skywalker. Last one. What do we got?
Well, I think I'm going to have to piggyback off of your Leia talk there. With my pivotal moment would be Leia's sacrifice in Episode 9 and the impact that has on the redemption of Ben Solo, and you know, that act being what was needed to push Ben back to the light.
I'm gonna piggyback on that piggyback and and just mention
It's
the
piggybackception.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So piggyback was in a
layers of piggybacking.
Right.
Are we all in a band right now?
I think just the message of Ben's redemption. I think, you know, given how I feel about Kylo Ren, I think that's glaringly obvious to all parties at this point. I, you know, in the grand scheme of things, much like Vader, you know, it's not gonna be achievable for the galaxy to accept these arcs of redemption and dismiss the wrongdoings, the war crimes, and the overall terrible creatures that Darth Vader and Kylo Ren have been. But for their namesakes, for their families, and their standing within those close to them, to have him redeem himself in that respect is, again, what we talked about with the Return of the Jedi, with, you know, Luke being at ease with Vader's turn back to Anakin and being good before death. That's also what the family, the Skywalker and Solo family, can feel about their family with Ben redeeming himself. And then, of course, you know, his redemption leads to the defeat of the all-powerful bad in the universe, which is not, you know, a bad secondary effect.
Happy accidents.
It's a minor moment, not a pivotal.
Right. I mean, as a quick aside, I mean, the universe is saved. You're welcome.
Well, I'm gonna turn this into a dog pile because that was mine as well. You guys did really well. Basically all the points I was going to say. The only thing that I would add to that is I loved Luke's character arc and his passing into the Force in The Last Jedi. I thought it was eloquent. I thought it was pitch perfect. I loved it, and I loved Leia's sacrifice. It was what she had wanted from the start of the trilogy, was for her to have Ben back again, and this was her way of having him back and being Ben again versus Kylo Ren. And I think it was just pitch perfect again. I loved it. So yeah, same here. Leia's sacrifice.
Yep.
Cool. I'm going to go with Rey not being alone. She starts out that movie searching for a connection to the Jedi that came before her. She's down on the ground. She's out of the fight. She asks for that connection and she gets it. She knows that she's not alone. I think that, obviously I think that that's one of the things that leads her to picking herself back up. But then not even just the Jedi, but she's not alone with Ben either. Ben shows up and then he crawls out of the pit to save her. So she's not alone in multiple respects there towards the end. She's helped along by those Jedi that came before, including Luke. And then she's not alone with Ben either. So I think those are two huge pivotal aspects of that last scene.
That's fantastic.
Also sparked one of the funniest memes I've ever seen, with where Rey says, I am all the Jedi, and then Mace Windu, who's still hanging around, says, and one citizen. And, and because Ahsoka's there, she just kind of shakes her head.
Right.
Oh my god!
What a jerk!
Oh my god!
It's in our Discord server if you want to check it out. I love it. I laughed for a long time at that one.
Yeah.
Oh, Mace.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that moment, Adam. And, I watched Rise of Skywalker again last night and just, enjoy that moment more each time I see it with Rey connecting with all the Jedi and everything. Yeah. So it's a good note to end on.
Yeah.
It's a very good note.
This was a ton of fun.
Mm-hmm.
So Pat and Charles, thank you so much for not only just coming on the show, but for Charles for coming up with the idea, because this was a blast talking about. Why don't you guys tell us about ConverSWations, where we can all find it, and what you got coming up, maybe.
Oh man, so we just talk Star Wars and hit record. So that's basically what you get. And we basically are a couple of nerds that like to make each other laugh, and hopefully we make some other people laugh too. So that's kind of what we do, and we are on the socials and the websites and all the stuff. We have
professional level
our
plugs.
website where we like do internet stuff, you guys.
Yeah.
So we have our main hub, our website, which is ConverSWations.com. And we're on Facebook.com/ConverSWations. We have the Instagrams at ConverSWations and Twitter at Swations. And, we're in the Red5 Network, so there's a bunch of other fun, cool pods in there that have some cool points of view, like you guys. And
I keep saying we're there to even out. We're the balance of the Force there. It can't all be too cool.
Oh,
so.
Oh, jeez. I think we're just a big gaggle of nerds at this point.
Yeah. Gaggle. Yeah.
Then I guess we've got this Spreadshirt store, and like Charles does some stuff on Twitter. Well, we have the 3PO Twitter account too. I don't think anybody knows about that.
Okay.
I know. I don't know about it.
That's true. We do. Yes, we do. Yeah, we have just a fun C3PO account that we started his story from A New Hope. But of course, going back to my pivotal moment of him getting his memory wiped, for him, this Skywalker saga only starts in A New Hope. He has no idea about the prequels. So, yeah, it's basically what C3PO talks about off camera and how he gets to some
I'll have to find that. That sounds hilarious.
That sounds awesome.
There is that. Yeah.
Cool.
So that's where you find us.
Thank you guys once again for just such an awesome, fun conversation.
Well, it was a blast being here. You guys got a great show, and never sell yourself short like that again. You guys got a really cool set of perspectives, and where you guys came from, and how the inception of your show, based on The Last Jedi, and how you guys interpreted that movie, and coming up with the name of a certain point of view is the perfect example of a discourse that can happen when people are just having a good time and listening and understanding and allowing for people's interpretations to be like that. And your series on the not the mentality, but the psychology. Yeah, fantastic. So just
thank you.
All around great show. So we really enjoy your show.
We appreciate that.
Yeah, the fact that you guys haven't unfriended each other is
it's tough sometimes.
That's that message of inclusion we're all looking for.
Right.
Yeah.
As soon as Pat hits Twitter, I'm unfriending him.
How can you unfriend someone that's not your friend in the first place?
Follow them just to block them.
Of course, you've got an Obi-Wan quote in your name, so I'm super jealous of that because he's never said ConverSWations. Oh,
wait a second.
Oh, wait.
James did. James Arnold Taylor did.
Yes, he has.
And he likes saying it.
Nice.
That's dorks. But yeah, I mean your whole deal is pretty awesing, and we love listening to you guys as well.
Well, that's humbling.
We wouldn't have agreed to come on if we didn't.
Exactly. We only go with the quality.
Yeah, you guys put on a brave face for the last hour and a half. We appreciate it.
Oh man, Charles, that was rough. Oh, we're still on? Yeah, hey guys.
I haven't stopped recording yet either, so
yeah, we can't tolerate ourselves mostly. That's why we have our wives come on.
We can tolerate ourselves.
Yes. Perhaps
one else.
Well, we thank you for coming on, and we look forward to hanging out on your show next. And we'll be doing this again a lot more. I think this was a blast.
Yes. Absolutely,
fantastic.
Looking forward to it.
I'm just glad you're here. At the end.
That was so much fun. Thank you, Pat and Charles, for joining us, for hanging out with us. I am not lying when I said my face hurt. It is actually very sore from laughing. It was such a fun time. Make sure you guys check out ConverSWations. Follow them everywhere because it's worth it. They put on a wonderful show, and two just really nice, really fun guys to talk to. So thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. We are on so many different platforms. We've also added, and I don't think I mentioned this on the last show, but we added iHeartRadio. You can find us on iHeartRadio. And just recently, Amazon Music launched a podcast section of their app, and we were on there day one, so you can find From a Certain Point of View on Amazon Music now as well. If you happen to be on a platform that allows reviews like Apple Podcasts or Podchaser, leave us a review. That helps get us out to more people, but it also helps us know what we're doing good and what you'd like to see different. So make sure you do that as well. Check out the website FromACertainPointOfView.com. There are blog articles on there. Josh actually uploaded a review of Jedi Temple Challenge, and that's something we're going to be talking about next week as well. Next week is going to be a pretty fun family-themed show, family-centered show we're going to be talking about. Jedi Temple Challenges, like I said, we're also going to be talking about things you can do with your kids for Star Wars, how to get them, introduced to Star Wars, things like that. And we'll have a little giveaway coming up too that might hopefully strike your fancy for something a little fun for your kid. So make sure you check that out. Follow us on all the socials. Also this week, brand new for us, we added Instagram. That is Certain POV Pod, so you can follow us on Instagram. Twitter is at Certain POV Pod. Facebook is From a Certain Point of View. Discord server has been very busy the last few weeks, and it's been a blast. So check that out. The link for that is in the show notes, and it's also on the website as well. Our email address is certainpovpod@gmail.com, and we are hosted by anchor.fm, where you can leave us a 60-second voicemail. If you have any pivotal moments that we didn't talk about today or anything from a past show, send us a voicemail. We would love to play it on the show. Pat and Charles mentioned the Red5 Network, but we'll plug it again here. Check out red5network.com. It's full of a wonderful cast of shows. Lots of great people put on some really great podcasts on the Red5 Network. It's become a family of sorts for us, and we'd love to have you guys check out all the other shows on the Red5 Network. Josh, where can everyone find you on the interwebs?
They can find me at Jedi Jar Jar 1722.
Nice, and I am on Twitter as well at the Gauze85.
And thanks everybody for joining us once again. A lengthier but fantastic episode.
Yeah, our longest, but man, it was so much fun.
Yeah, so it was a great one. So thank you for sticking with us, and keep an eye out on our YouTube channel, as well as we'll be dropping some more videos on there in the future related to Galaxy's Edge, my trip there, and just some other things as well. We want to get that YouTube channel more active. So thanks again for joining us today, and everything we said today